Hello everyone, it's Alsamira, and today's video is the one I told you about in my last video that's going to blow your mind. This is not clickbait. God, how I wish it was. But it's not. It's actually true. And I will link the video below so you can see the science, the reports, the studies, the proof of everything that I'm going to tell you. It's a 2.5 hour video and it's got a lot of medical stuff to it. And they do a pretty good job about explaining stuff. But me being a nurse for 28 years, got a hair, I took notes and can certainly cut this down so you don't have to watch a 2.5 hour video, but I'm going to put it there because I want you to share it with as many people as you can, because the more people that get this video, the more people that see this they're going to wake up and they're going to be mad and they're going to be, I'm not trying to scare people. I'm trying to wake people up to what's being done to us. Innocent people, millions of people were killed when COVID happened. Millions. We all watched it on TV as they loaded bodies onto 18-wheeler trucks in New York City. Sadly, in this video, they do not explain the why. And I did email the people who did this video and asked them to please put out another video explaining why they did this. What was the purpose? So this is COVID, the fake pandemic is what I'm calling it. I decided right now. That's the title. And this is researched by a drbryanardis, ARDIS. He is the one that did all the research and was on this video. This video came to light by the underground good guys. Their organization is called the Light System, or TLS. That's who I'm going to refer them as, is TLS. And what they do is try to stop what the government and the world is doing to us. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. This time they were not. So in January of 2020, a lab in China, a genetics lab in China, did DNA testing on this COVID virus. And they found that the DNA came from 2 different snakes, not bats, as they originally stated in the news. It came from a king cobra snake and a Asian krait snake, and that's spelled Krait. Those 2 snake DNA are found in the virus. That's what were in people who had the COVID virus and who have it, who get it. I don't know if people are still getting it or not. And they found in hospitals that people were, having difficulty breathing. And they were going by the hospital protocols, which was to treat this virus with antibiotics. And for people who aren't in the medical field, you do not treat viruses with antibiotics because it does nothing. You treat bacteria with antibiotics. So when they treated these people, they had a protocol that Dr. Anthony Fauci, I believe this is how you say his name, came on the TV and said, we have created this protocol to treat COVID, and it contained 3 antibiotics, which I don't know why people went along with it, but they did. This is the medical system now being involved with what's going on, okay? So once they started giving these antibiotics, it would put people into kidney failure, and then they would die. And that's the trajectory of what would happen. If you went on the CDC's website, you can even go on there right now, the hospital protocols that they were using are not what the CDC says to do. Because again, you don't treat viruses with antibiotics. And then they were going on the news and saying they were only allowed to use one drug in America only, and not allowed to send any vaccine to any other country for 1 year until the FDA approved it. Can you believe that? To let the rest of the world die from COVID, if we had a vaccine, to let them have to sit there and watch their family die when we had a vaccine, and not share it with the rest of the world for a year? Why is no one questioning this back then? Maybe they were. I don't know. I don't watch the news. I refuse to watch the news because I know it's fake. Now, the drug that they came up with to treat the one drug that I'm speaking about is called remdesivir. Remdesivir. And they had done studies using this drug on Ebola in Africa. And Ebola kills 50% of the people that contract Ebola. So 50% of people die if they get Ebola, okay? The remdesivir killed 53% of people when they gave it to people with Ebola. So the drug was actually worse, right? 50% if you gave them nothing, 53% if you gave them this drug. but they said it was safe and effective for COVID. They also had a second drug called ZNAP that they studied that had a 49% death rate. And these were pulled from the trial of Ebola because of these numbers. And the NIH called this drug safe and effective against COVID. People started on the news because it was hard to say remdesivir. They started making a meme and called it "Run, Death is Near," because people who were getting this drug were dying from kidney failure, not from COVID. So they were calling this drug "Run, Death is Near." Run, Death is Near instead of remdesivir. It's nothing like the news to make a joke out of something so serious. So the World Health Organization, months later, I'm sorry, the World Health Organization, a month after the FDA approved this drug, said we can no longer call it remdesivir because too many people were refusing it because of the "Run, Death is Near." So they told all hospital personnel that they had to call it by its brand name, and the brand name is Veklury. Now, what you guys don't understand is you probably know there's a brand name, Tylenol, and then the generic is acetaminophen. In the medical world, when you're working in the hospital, we go by the generic. We never call it by the brand name. So we just always say give them acetaminophen. We would never say give them Tylenol. So that's just how the medical system works. So for them to say don't use the generic name, use the brand name, is a big deal. So I just wanted to explain that to you so you could understand how big a deal that is. Now let's go back to the snakes for a minute. So basically, this is snake venom that we're getting. How are we getting it? And there is a drug called Regeneron. It's something called a monoclonal antibody, and it has 100% success rate of curing COVID. And yet it was banned by the FDA 2 years prior. I don't remember if they said why. I didn't write it down. Most anti-venoms, if you get bit by a snake, you don't always know what kind of snake you got bit by. But you go to the hospital and they come with anti-venom. And most of the time, that anti-venom is a mixture of a bunch of different snake venoms, and that's called polyclonal antibodies. And that's not effective against COVID. only a monoclonal antibody is. And I know it's a big medical word, but it tells you that the government and the hospitals knew about this drug. They knew about that the FDA banned it. I don't know why. Might be able to Google it. I didn't. And in January of 2020 is when they knew that it was snakes that was giving us COVID. In April of 2020, the French also tested their citizens who had COVID and came up with the same the same results, that it came from the king cobra and the Asian crate snake. Now, let me read my writing here. On the National Institutes of Health website, they actually talk about how the COVID vaccine is made. COVID is a collection of symptoms like lupus. You can't see lupus. It's a collection of symptoms. You can't see AIDS. It's a collection of symptoms from the HIV virus. Does that make sense? So there is no COVID virus because I just explained to you that it's DNA from 2 snakes. So you're actually getting the equivalent of 2 snake bites when you get COVID. And they named it COVID, I don't know why, but based on the symptoms that people were getting: trouble breathing, loss of taste and smell, other things. And if you look up the symptoms of a snake bite, the list is the same. So that is telling. And the National Institutes of Health call it a spike protein. And that is simply a snake venom protein. So when you see spike protein, all that means it's snake venom. So how are we getting it? How did we get it? You ready? Are you sitting down? They sprayed it in the air, put it in the water. They put it in our food. They created something called a plasmid. And a plasmid is a little microscopic ring. And you can implant anything you want inside this little plastic ring. And what they did was they put these 2 snake venoms into this little ring, along with something called a projector, and put it in our water. And what this does is, once you drink the water, it's just so messed up that I'm just upset talking about it all over again. Once you drink it, and it gets into your stomach, those plasmids break down and release that snake venom and the projector, and its job is to just reproduce and do nothing but make more and more and more, and it never stops. Never. It is in your body. Guess what's in the vaccine? The very same snake venom that's supposed to be helping us has the same snake venom with these plasmids in it. Do not get any more COVID vaccines ever. Do not. I'm glad I only got the very first round, and that was because I was working and I was forced to for my job. But I haven't gotten any since. But it's still in my body. And that's what's scary, because it's reproducing. And what's happening is it gets into, it can go through skin. It can go and get into bacteria. It can get into yeast, which, women get yeast infections, or there's yeast in our digestive tract. There's bacteria when you poop. So, if you don't wash your hands well, you can be passing this on to people who never had COVID, because you're shedding these cells from your skin to whoever you're around through kissing, touching, sex. And that's kind of why I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's why babies weren't really getting COVID. But I'm going to get to that. So the plasmid's goal is to reproduce whatever is placed in that little ring. And they placed this 2 snake venoms into the plasmids. Again, they did not say who did this in this video. And I want to know who. God damn it. Who spiked our water? This is a form of mass genocide. Millions of people died. Certainly not as many as the Holocaust. I am not comparing. But millions of people died that didn't have to die. Because people in the drug companies, people in the medical field, people in, I'm assuming, the government, and the whole world was in on this, the higher ups. So the water delivery, back in 2007, they figured out that these water systems can be used for terrorist attacks, create a pandemic, and take over. There was a paper written that even tells how much chlorine to use to kill these plasmids, or to let it loose and let the pandemic fly. It's right there. It's written how much chlorine to use. even though chlorine is not the one that kills it the best, that's what they were using and putting in the water. In January of 2020, some people saw the CDC was surveying wastewater facilities and then predicting an outbreak and when it would happen. Think about that. January, we find out it's snake venom, that it's in the water. And here's the CDC testing wastewater samples. Thing is, wastewater is poop and urine. So why are they testing wastewater? Because if there is anything in there, you've already pooped or peed it out. Even though there's still stuff in you, it just makes no sense that they would be testing wastewater treatment facilities. The CDC still refuses to release what it found on these tests. And this was, okay. And then, one thing I forgot to mention, I'm sorry. This video was created on September 11th, 2023. I hope they put a video out, but 9/11 was also staged. It is not what we are led to believe it is. And I don't know if someone has already put a video out on that, but if I get one, I will definitely talk about that. But they did mention in this video that 9/11 is not what we were told. It's not a terrorist attack. So this is in 2023 that this video was made that I'm speaking of. Back then, they had 400 testing areas, and all of a sudden they increased it to 2,000 testing areas and told us to get ready for the next round of pandemic. These plasmids have been made since the 1960s. This is how long the government has been playing around with this technology. And only hydrogen peroxide will actually sufficiently kill these plasmids. Babies and children, why they didn't get COVID? Because of the melatonin. Because they sleep so much and they're outside playing in the sun so much. Melatonin blocks 50% of all viruses worldwide. So if you want to start taking you some melatonin, it'll help you block 50% of all viruses worldwide. But that's why babies and children didn't get COVID, because of the melatonin in their systems. I'm reading my scribble here. Okay. In the body, every single cell has receptors, and these receptors attract different things for different reasons. But these two snake venoms that they were specifically using were targeting the nicotine receptors that every single cell in the human body has. And you wonder, why does the human body have nicotine receptors in every single cell in the body? And it crosses what in the medical field we call the blood-brain barrier. Most drugs do not get into the brain because there's a barrier to protect the brain. Only certain drugs get to the brain, and they call that the blood-brain barrier. But even the brain has nicotine receptors, which means that nicotine crosses the blood-brain barrier and can get to the brain. So you wonder, why did God create humans to have nicotine receptors on all cells, and that it can cross the blood-brain barrier? That's huge. That's a huge thing. That is why smokers were the least effective worldwide, because of the nicotine. So they didn't catch COVID like the rest of us, because they had nicotine in their systems that were there. The nicotine overpowers the snake venom and goes into the nicotine receptor. If you don't have nicotine in your system, then the snake venom takes over that area. Okay? So you want to have nicotine in your system to keep the snake venom from attaching and doing damage to you and ultimately killing you. Snake venom also shuts off. That's why, because it crosses the blood-brain barrier, that's why it shuts off taste, smell. It shuts off your heart to pump and the lungs to breathe. So that's why people were having these symptoms, was because it was on these nicotine receptors and getting to the brain. There is a drug called ivermectin that binds to these nicotine receptors, but it's not as strong as nicotine. This finding in nicotine in April of 2020. Oh, I'm sorry. I was writing fast when okay, I can edit this. Harvard in 2015 proved that nicotine is not the addictive substance in cigarettes, that there are 600 synthetic chemicals that are the cancer causing and addictive causing properties in cigarettes, not nicotine. Nicotine is not addictive. It just isn't. And that's why, one of the reasons why God would put nicotine receptors in all of our cells, even in our brains, because obviously there's something there with nicotine alone that benefits the human body. So in April of 2020, all of a sudden, the news says that smokers are at the highest risk of getting COVID. And guess what? A whole bunch of people quit smoking. And what happened? They got COVID and died. How cruel is that? How cruel is that? In the 1970s, I don't know if it was pharmaceutical companies or the cigarette companies, hired chemists to make cigarettes addictive because people weren't buying enough. And they did studies and found that if you added something called pyrazines to cigarettes, that it made them addictive. And so that's why cigarettes are addictive, is because of pyrazines, not nicotine. They cause cancer, again, because of the 600 synthetic chemicals within the cigarettes. They used to put arsenic in the paper that wrapped the cigarettes in the 70s and 80s. And then they added sugar. And when you burn sugar when you're smoking, that increases your chance of cancer as well. Now, in January of 2023, people still having symptoms of COVID, loss of smell, taste, heart problems, lung problems, do yourself a favor. Go buy yourself nicotine gum. Chew it for 6 days according to the package directions. Get the lowest dose. This is very important. Start with the lowest dose. If you don't want to chew the gum, get the lowest dose patch, which is 7 milligrams. It comes in 7, 14, and 21. Remember, Harvard proved that nicotine alone is not addictive. This is going to cure your COVID symptoms because the nicotine will take over those receptors where the snake venom is now sitting. You can either do a patch of 7 milligrams once a day for 6 days, and your symptoms should go away. And they showed studies. Again, I'm going to link this below. Or what the doctor does is he takes a 14 milligram patch, cuts it into 6 pieces, which makes each piece, I don't know, roughly 2 milligrams, and puts one on every day because he's a wellness guy, and he figures if God put nicotine receptors in our entire body, that nicotine must be good for us. And he's actually wearing a piece of a patch every day so he can protect himself. And I'm telling you right now, I am headed to my local CVS and I'm going to get nicotine gum. I never had COVID that I'm aware of, but being a nurse, I was around people who had COVID, and I do have ringing in my ears. I do have brain fog to this day, and I'm going to try it and see, because if I drank the water and didn't get sick, that snake venom is still within me, and I don't want it there. And if I start to feel better, then I know that I got snake venom somehow. Now, the reason why you don't want to start with the highest dose of nicotine is because as the nicotine binds to these receptor cells, that's going to let loose that snake venom. And you're going to have a bunch of snake venom floating around your body until you pee or poop it out. Okay. And if you throw on a 21 milligram patch because you're like, I want this shit out of me now, you're going to have a bad time with diarrhea, with throwing up, with all sorts of things. And you don't want that. Trust me, listen to the video that I'm going to link below, or trust that I'm telling you what I heard, and start slow. 6 days is all you have to do. And again, it is not addictive. 100% of your symptoms will go away. Now, guess what fun the world has come up with? A brand new health protocol that we're going to be a tobacco-free world by 2030. We're going to rid the world of nicotine. Now, why do you think they want to rid the world of nicotine? Because that's the antidote to what they're poisoning us with. And places like New Zealand are like, no, we're going to be tobacco free by 2025, which was last year. So I'd have to look it up to see if New Zealand is actually tobacco free. If anyone listening is from there, let me know. However, again, we go back to, why do we have these why do we have these nicotine receptors? Why did God put them there? Do you know that nicotine is in eggplant? It is in tomatoes. It is in tobacco, obviously. It is in the nightshade family. It is in squash, potatoes, cauliflower, celery, a bunch of vegetables that we're supposed to be eating. So if we eat a good diet of fruits and vegetables, we're getting the nicotine that God created our bodies to absorb and attach to these receptors for us to have a healthy body. So if the world does get rid of nicotine somehow, we'll all be eating eggplant. And I don't like eggplant. Baba ganoush, love it. So I guess I'll be living on baba ganoush. But eggplant, no. But I love me some cauliflower. Roasted with cheese sauce. Oh, my grandma used to make that. Man. Okay. Let's get back to So they were studying plants to stop Ebola, and this other this other virus that I couldn't quite catch. It sounded like he was saying Marbird or Marvard, and that comes from the boom sling snake venom. It's synthetic, can be made synthetic, and again, put in plasmids, like we discussed earlier, and is being done in China. It makes your eyes bleed, your nose bleed, your butt bleed, and you bleed out and you drop dead. What a horrible sounding death. And it looks like there's something in grapefruit and tomatoes. No, I take that back. That's something else. It looks like there's something in with vitamin C that helps with that. And what's crazier that they're talking about in this video is something called predictive programming. So they actually play out these scenarios on TV for us to watch years before it actually happens. And I don't know if it's to soothe their guilt or some kind of cheap thrill, knowing that we're watching this episode and being like, wow, look at that shit, and then it comes true. So if you've seen the show Blacklist, season 4, episode 5 is the COVID episode. They don't call it COVID, but the main dude of the show, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, the main dude of the show, his drink was poisoned with snake venom, and he dropped to the floor and couldn't breathe and was in the hospital. And he's a criminal. He didn't want to be in the hospital, so he broke out and all this stuff. And that was aired February of 2017, 3 full years before COVID actually happened. So if you have Netflix, watch Blacklist, season 4, episode 5, and watch COVID play out on TV show. How fucked up is that? I'm sorry, but I find that very fucked up. And then this one I just talked about, the boom sling snake venom, where you bleed out. Apparently, this movie that sucked, but it starred Brad Pitt, called the Bullet Train movie, was the predictive program for this boom sling snake venom. And they even mention the boom sling snake, and the snakes are even on the train, and the woman even dies bleeding out. It's like real life on a TV program, or this is a movie. So if you want to watch that and wonder what the fuck, man, what is TV is in on this? Because someone had to tell TV the idea. Here's what we want to do to America. Here's what we want to do to people in China. We're going to get them so sick and kill off 1 million people, but we want to do a TV show first. because of whatever reason, and TV goes along with it, and they're like, "Oh, that's a cool storyline." Maybe TV didn't know, but come on. Come on, people. We're living in a world where everything we are told is a fucking lie. Everything. Don't tell me that TV didn't know that this shit knew what was really going on. I'm getting pissed. So the vaccines, the COVID vaccines have plasmids of snake venom as of December 2020, as I talked about. And it requires magnesium for some reason. So if you're having heart problems, it says to stop magnesium, but don't do anything without talking to your doctor first about magnesium, because that I can't in good faith just tell you to stop taking magnesium if you're on it for a reason. Nicotine I can, because nicotine is a plant. Nicotine is not addictive. You are only taking it for 6 days. I'm fully confident that it will help your symptoms. Please go and get yourself some nicotine if you are still having COVID problems, or if you had COVID, or if you got the vaccines, because you still have the snake venom in you. It's still there. All right. They talked about other things that got a little medical, so I'm going to skip that. I'm already at 52 minutes. In June of 2020, in Italy, they did a bunch of tests on their citizens who had COVID and did DNA tests and found 36 different venoms in COVID. 16 different ocean venoms in these people. One of them being from this specific starfish. There were snake venoms from India, from Uruguay, from Brazil, and they were finding toxin-like peptides found in the urine, poop, and blood. Yeah. Okay, now let me see. Something about snake venom causes cancer in 1956. And they would inject animals and they would get a brain tumor. And they would treat it with nicotine and it would be gone within 72 hours. This is 1956. So you can't tell me the government didn't know that they could be treating these millions of people dying with nicotine. There are 4 supposedly irreversible diseases that they were testing on animals, one being that brain tumor called a glioblastoma, type 1 diabetes, Parkinson's, and inflammation of the heart called myocarditis. Once they use nicotine on these animals, it reversed in less than 24 hours these diseases. And then he said nicotine prevents Parkinson's. 1956. Do you think that Michael J. Fox, who has Parkinson's, and all the people in the world that you know that have Parkinson's would have liked to know that nicotine could have prevented their Parkinson's? They didn't mention if it helps once you have it. They didn't mention that. So I can't answer that. But they did say that it prevents Parkinson's. So there's something with nicotine that is like a super plant. All right. And then in Latin, the word virus means venom. Bet you didn't know that. Pregnant women were losing their babies after getting the COVID vaccine, which was not a vaccine. It was full of snake venom. It seemed like they are trying to make women infertile. They did not say why. They talked about an IR sauna kills the venom. So if you got into a sauna, that it would kill the venom. That if you had blood clots and snake venom poisoning, and this is in Medscape, what do they say? Oh, licorice root, and then something called nattokinase, and then something else, anacysteine. You'll have to watch the video for that. And that the military created something that stops these blood clots from breaking down. So right now, if you get a blood clot, you get put on Coumadin or heparin or something like that, a blood thinner. And the military created something that stops clots from breaking down. So they were mentioning licorice root and these other drugs for that reason. Now, off topic, but you know all those GLP-1 weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy? You ready for this? That comes from the Gila monster lizard venom. It causes thyroid cancer. It causes kidney failure. It causes liver failure. It causes your stomach to paralyze, so food does not move along like it's supposed to. And this is 2 years after stopping Wegovy or Ozempic, because it binds to what's called the vagal nerve, which helps move food along. And so what happens? You throw up and you can't eat. So that's what is in Ozempic and Wegovy, is the Gila monster lizard venom. That's what you're injecting or taking for weight loss. Is it worth it? Because if you get this paralyzed stomach or thyroid cancer, or who else knows what's coming with that, you know, and this venom stays in the body for 10 years. So you could stop this GLP-1 and it'll be in your body for 10 years. Oh, I want to end this by saying one thing. God said, I put everything on the planet that you need, and nothing else is needed. So when pharmaceutical companies say they've come up with this new drug, or the medical system says they've come up with these new medical things, God made us perfect. God put everything on this planet that our bodies need to be healthy. We need to step up and take care of the temples that our bodies are. Eat better food, fruits, vegetables, the ones with nicotine in them. Get out in the sun. Get that sun. Get that vitamin D. Do the right things. All the plants we need are growing in the wilderness. That's where we get all of our medicine for the most part, is from plants. And they are made into, pills, because you can't just chew on a plant. I guess you could, but so that's why God put nicotine receptors in every cell in our body. We don't totally know why. God does mysterious things. But please, if you have had COVID or gotten the vaccine, please go get yourself some nicotine. Make sure it's pure nicotine. And the doctor recommended the Rugby brand on Amazon, but really any brand at CVS, as long as it's just nicotine, will work. Start with the lowest dose, 7 milligram patch, or you can do the gum and try it for 6 days, and your symptoms, according to this doctor, his wife did it, and her symptoms that she'd been suffering with for 2 years were 100% gone in 3 days. Now, this is all true, everything I've told you, and I will link the video below so you can watch it yourself and you can see for yourself what the hell is being done to us. What in the world are we doing that we are allowing this shit to be done to us and we do nothing? And I know right now I didn't know this. So I can't blame myself. I can't blame anyone who didn't know. This is just now coming to light, as far as I know. But now that we know, we need to do something about this. We can't just sit back and wait for someone else to do it. You know, if they're poisoning us like this and killing millions of people, why? Why? And making women infertile, why? I don't understand. Are they trying to decrease the surplus population? Which is from a show that I can't remember now off the top of my head. And oh, it's A Christmas Carol with George C. Scott. And I just can't believe this is happening. And all the other stuff they're doing to us, it it's just mind-boggling. So we will talk again. I will link the video below. Please subscribe, leave some comments. Let me know if you went out and got some nicotine. And I will see you another day.